Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Dr. Linda's show. And today we're going to be talking about how to turn your passion for writing and education into a business. Of course, I have with me here Ro, who is an expert because she has done this before. Ro, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Dr. Linda. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me. Hi, everyone. I'm Ro. I'm the founder and owner of Belly Bees. It's an educational brand for children.
Okay. All right. So, for the sake of those that are watching right now, we're going to dive into this topic. But while we're talking, if you have any question that you would like me to ask Ro, please drop it as a comment. And towards the end of the interview, we're going to choose some of those questions and answer them. So if you're watching, watch to the end so that you see the questions other people are asking, even if you yourself don't have questions as well. Okay, so Ro, before we continue, we would like to know more about your brand. That's what is going to give us an idea of what you've done and even your to better understand your perspectives on some of the questions I'll be asking you. So you've built a brand that combined writing skills, storytelling, education, and entrepreneurship. Could you tell us like your journey of from being a writer to an entrepreneur?
Of course. Actually, my journey started when I was in university in the US. I started doodling on the side of my marketing textbook. So I was a marketing major. And then I packed everything away. And then years later, after my son was born, that's how everything came to light, because I started the company as a more consumer's perspective than an entrepreneur. Belly Bees was started as an infant food company back in Sri Lanka. So my son was 4 months old at the time, and I wanted certain ingredients in the products that I wanted to give him, and I couldn't find that in the market. So that's how the whole Belly Bees started, and then I saw. When I was unpacking, I saw all my marketing doodles of my business plan that I had written. It had nothing to do with food. It was a lot about writing and drawing and something to do with creativity. Of course, I wrote my first book when I was 10 years old, unpublished. It was on top of a mango tree. So creativity has always been in me. It has always been that I didn't know how to bring it out into the world. So there were times that I wanted to do design shoes. There were times I wanted to draw clothes and design clothes. But what stuck with me throughout my entire life was the writing aspect of it. So that's how everything started. And once my son grew older, we diverted the company towards a more educational side of the brand, because we decided that children have way too many screen time in their lives, and wanted them to be a little bit more humanized in terms of being creative, working with their hands, and being dirty, being outside. That's how Belly Bees started, and it evolved into the educational brand.
That's awesome. What kind of products do you offer? Maybe you can tell us like what are all the products that you offer so far?
We offer a range of food products in Sri Lanka, but we're mostly focusing on the educational brand, which we have flashcards, we have books for children from 0 to 12 years. So we have early readers, we have sight words, children who are navigating towards sight words, pre-writing skills. We have stories for bedtime stories. And then we have flashcards for children from 0 months, which is like the high contrast flashcards, and all the way towards when they're 6 years old. So we have the ABCs, we have the multiplications, it's coming out, math, color recognitions. So there's a wide range of products. We have coloring books, we have everything that requires a child to be a little bit imaginative is what we are focusing on.
Hmm. That's a wide range of products, as I mentioned earlier. I love the flashcards because when I check them out on your website, so I saw a lot of them, so colorful, so nice. That's really something that, as of all your products, I feel somebody should have a look at that one.
Thank you.
Okay. So, what was the turning point where you realized that your creative passion can actually become a scalable business? I'm asking this because for some people, it's going to end at using that creativity to create maybe something that their child is going to use, right? But yours, you took it all the way into a scalable business. So, what was that moment for you?
The moment was actually during COVID. So COVID opened our door towards the creative side of things, especially because the kids were not allowed to, none of us were allowed to go into public places. And the with the food industry in at that point was we were not able to deliver a lot of the products, so we have to soon rely on a wider product range, which was more easily accessible. We could not go for markets, we could not go for trade shows, we couldn't, and people were not allowed to go to stores a lot either. So that's how flashcards actually started. The very first version of the flashcards was actually drawn by my mom. So I wanted her to do something that, involves actually doing something. Because of COVID, she was by herself, with my mom and dad. They were living separately. So she drew the first set of flashcards by hand, and she colored it by hand, and then we digitized it, and then I made it digitized, and then we evolved from there. So that's the turning point. And also because in terms of financially, because of COVID, we were it was the sales revenue was reducing, and we didn't want it to stop there. So we wanted to give the customer a broader product range so that we could survive those years. And it just evolved into something we didn't imagine.
Wow. Wow. So all this while you're talking, you've talked about your experience from Sri Lanka, and then you studying in the US. I think for your MBA marketing program, and then now you're in Canada. So, if not anything, you've been to 3 countries, or you've lived in 3 countries, right? So, how has your personal experiences across these countries influenced your brand evolution?
Well, every country has their pluses. I mean, they have their different ways of being creative. Their cultures are so different. So I picked all the best parts of everywhere. And I was lucky enough to live in all these 3 countries. So it wasn't just as a tourist where you stay for a little bit. I actually was a consumer. I was actually living there and experiencing what everybody else was experiencing. That became a little bit easier for me to navigate where I wanted the company go to, because I had seen it firsthand, and it was research that I did by myself by living it. And it was an amazing experience, because I got to see all these different avenues of where I could go with my brand.
Awesome. Okay, let's dive more into the actual process of transforming the writing and education into monetizable offering, because a lot of writers or educators may often struggle with monetization, right? So, for somebody who has that writing skill, what are the first steps they can take to turn their creativity into revenue generating products?
Well, first, I would think that you need to start writing on one of your personal experiences, which gives you a little bit more in depth into how you were feeling. Remember what you were smelling, what everything looked like. That is different than creating something for the first time which you had no experience of. One of the fastest selling books I have was is a book called Summer at Great Western, which I just launched a couple of days ago. It was my personal experience when I was a childhood during a summer that I went out with my own cousins. So I still remember what happened, who got hurt, where did it hurt, when I fell off a rock, or what the it took place in a tea plantation. So what the tea smelled like, the how what the I still remember those things. So it's easier for me to write those stories when I had that personal experience. Once you get that started, then you can go towards your creative side of imagining different things, to build better stories.
I get your point. That it's easier to write on things that you experienced instead of just like imagination. And you're still going to imagine, but if you can start from the ones you know that happened, it's easier.
Yes, yes, exactly, Dr. Linda, because that gives you an opportunity to be more emotional in paper, and the reader recognizes that. Um, and then once you do all that, then when you have the hang of writing and putting things in paper, putting emotions in paper, then you can navigate towards a non-experienced story, like a magical era or whatever, whichever you want to go. That gives you like a internal training within yourself to
Mhm,
write those stories thereafter.
mhm. I get you. So, in terms of, okay, so let's say somebody is a writer now and they've written something, what my monetization strategy do you think they should explore?
Well, at this point, I think the best thing to do is to get reviewed. Your books need to get reviewed. I mean, if it's a bad book, I would nothing is a bad book. So it just need a little bit more work, a little bit more, maybe some edits. Some maybe you have some spelling mistakes, or the story didn't flow from one to another. So getting it reviewed is the best way forward before you launched it anywhere. There are several websites that you could Google and find out where you can get your books reviewed. You can send it to a couple of friends or family, to get your books reviewed, so you can have those input. The best teacher is feedback for anything you do. Feedback is your greatest teacher, and failure is even the best teacher on the planet. So just because somebody doesn't like your book doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means, you need to revisit maybe your storyline, or how you put into paper, how you explain that scenario. That's the best way forward.
That's a very good insight because uh, even before launching something, massive, putting that money behind it, you want to just know that it has the likelihood to sell even when you launch it, right? So getting it reviewed is a great place to go. Okay, good. So let's look at when building educational or creative content for kids. Um, how do you approach the creation differently compared to if you were creating for adults?
Well, for adults, it's different because I am actually creating my content to children, but through the adults. So I'm trying, my content is basically not about showing my product and this is what I have. So these are the flashcards, A, B, C, D. That is not my strategy. It is best to build a campaign of what you can give your client, what you can give your customers, in terms of what kind of value additions would it happen. So I have a book that is pre-writing skills for children, and I'm not going to show you every single page. Of course, there are contents where I show how to use the product and how to use the pages as well. But for a child to have those pre-writing skills, you have to do sensory developments, with some rice, or like hide some alphabets inside so they can dig it out. So they build their motor skills. So those kind of value addition is not necessarily implied to your product, but it gives a benefit to the customer who is watching those videos, which ultimately like, hey, you know what, this channel has really good advice in terms of how I want to build my child's motor skills. And then from here and there in the background, you could have your product just showing, but you're not really focusing on that, but you're focusing on the things that you're doing. So things like that.
Mm, I get your point. So looking at the things are other things that that child needs as well. You have to think about them because it's like I get you. For an adult, it's like maybe an adult knows what they need to do, and you can just go straight to the point or straight to the product you want to create for that adult. But for children, because of some other things that they need to develop, you have to look at how do you provide those things as well, even when they are not related to your product. Is that?
Exactly. And in as a voiceover, what I do is I talk about the benefits, or even in the caption, I talk about the benefits. So the video is targeted to children, but the parents can hear the voiceover. So I tell them, like, you know, the benefits of doing the weaving is because it builds your child's fingers. Um, but then you can use this before you do the pre-writing skills book. So kind of like an indirect marketing strategy, which has worked quite well.
I get you. You know, one thing that is interesting about being a new parent, especially I would say new parent, new mom or new dad as well, is that you there are a lot of things you don't know. So if somebody just create a product, a parents may need that product for their child, but they may not know that they need the product for their child. So a lot of education goes in there to really educate that parent that, hey, for example, you're talking about developing fingers and all, for an adult, especially a new mom, you may never have gone through that process before, thinking of how to get a child's fingers developed. Like, it doesn't sound like a thing, but it may be helpful. So the educational piece is very essential to even get
It
people
is.
to understand. Mhm.
It is, exactly. And apart from that, in today's world where parents are very busy, they don't have time to think, hey, what should I do for my child this weekend when we do things together? So they give them a little bit of a avenue where they can go and then say, hey, you know what, you can do this today, we can do this tomorrow, and create that bond between parents and child as well. So that'll remember them, remember developing these things. I remember when my son was about maybe an year old, I had this big sheet of paper and I had blobs of paint everywhere, and I sat him in the middle of it and he was smacking it, he was mixing it, so he was testing out the different textures of the paint, and he was making art. Of course, my floor was like a rainbow with a lot of colors and it was a mess, but that's how you create that bond with your child, and making it a fun learning experience is what matters at the end.
Mhm. That's good. So, for example, you mentioned that you just launched a book, like recently, right? So, my question is, how do you decide what to create next?
Um, Good question. I don't always know. Sometimes when I'm writing one book, I get an idea to a completely different book, and I quickly write down all those notes. So I have a notebook with me at all times, 24/7. Even when I go out of the house, there's always a notebook with me. Um, and I'm always writing something. So I take my son for baseball, I'm jotting something down on my notebook. So things like that, there's always a notebook. So these ideas usually come to you at the most random times and the more unexpected times. When I'm cooking, I'll have something. Of course, I'm not going to stop cooking and quickly go write it, but but it comes at the most unexpected moments. Um, but I don't usually know what I'm going to do next. It When you open your radar towards creativity, creativity flows. It doesn't stop. So if you want that to come in, you have to start doing, even if it's just 5 minutes a day. just start writing. It doesn't need to be good. It doesn't need to be planned. I have a notebook that have about 5 or 6 stories in one notebook. I'm just randomly writing different ideas and different notes, and and sometimes I'll be like, hey, you know what? Maybe this character should say this. So I write it in that notebook, and then when I'm writing it, and I remember, hey, you know what? I wrote something in my notebook. Maybe I would refer that. So it doesn't all. It's not always planned. I mean, at least for me, I mean, I can never sit down and say, I'm going to write this story. So from A to B, this is how it's going to happen. I have a pegboard in my office where I have different post-it notes posted on it of a story that I haven't started yet. That when I'm randomly doing something, I quickly write it on a post-it and just slap it on that pegboard. So eventually, when I start writing it, I will organizing it. So it's like my unofficial mind map before I start a story. And then when I start writing it, then all this creativity will start flowing in.
That's great. You talked about opening your creative radar. Like, is that what you went on to explain, or is that a different thing?
It is what I explained. So it's
Okay.
just about opening your radar, as in start doing it. It doesn't have to be a big project, a small project. It could be even a drawing a flower. Right now I am practicing my Procreate skills. I'm not great at it, so I start drawing it on it every day. So eventually, next year by now, you're so much better than what you started off with. So you have to start doing it every day, but you have to be consistent as well, right? So it's like practicing your craft every single day. The more you do, the better you're gonna get.
Sure. Okay. So, in your opinion, why do parents trust your brand? What is it that make
Because
them to keep coming back?
because we're very transparent. If you make a mistake, we tell them we made a mistake. Sorry, but we'll make it better next time. We don't try to hide things. There are so many times that we had packaging issues when we in Sri Lanka when we had the infant brand, and we were upfront, told everybody we made this mistake. We're sorry. And then, of course, there are marketing things that goes afterwards, and then there are customer service teams that does the needful things to approach those customers. But our customers are fantastic. They tell you, hey, privately they will tell you, hey, we came across this error. There have been a spelling mistake in one of the books, and immediately we changed it. It took us, I mean, we had so many editors. I had read the copy so many times, but we did not catch that one word. So those things, if the customer comes and tell you, hey, you know what, can you please check page 22 of this book? And we immediately changed it. They didn't make a big scene about it. They just told us because they trust us to make correct our mistakes. As long as you're honest in what you're doing and transparent in what you're doing, I mean, we are human after all, right? So
Exactly. Good, good. Yeah, and the thing about, like, you talked about transparency and correcting mistakes ASAP. One thing is, people, even when somebody makes mistake, the fact that you corrected it and how fast you corrected it can even still go a long way to paint your brand even in a better light compared to when there was never any mistake, because it also shows, how promptly you take you take back, right? And how promptly you incorporate those feedback into the business or into building the products, and making them better. So, I can see why parents love that.
yeah, because we do treat all our customers as our brand and ambassadors, and feedback is our greatest teacher. And we have mentioned that numerous times to our customers, and they understand that. So we're lucky.
Okay, so you have lots of products. different types, right? So how do you maintain brand consistency across all these products?
We try to do the same thing for all our products. So it will be the same kind of product launch. It'll be the same kind of packaging. All our packaging is mostly diverted towards white color, because I feel like that gives a more cleaner look
Mhm.
in our brand strategy. Um, and we have the same color schemes for all our product. Now all our flashcards look the same. So it has a different color to identify each type, each variant, but more or less it's the same. In terms of pre-writing skill books, it's also different workbooks have different colors, but the outer layer and the skeleton of it is the same. That gives the customer a reason to come back because they recognize the brand more when you have the same kind of consistency going. Um, it is the in our brand portfolio as to what colors to use, what font to use. We use the same fonts, we use the same colors, and then we define the variant based on those that main skeleton.
Mm, I see that. So what countries do you regularly ship to?
Currently, the books are a little bit wider spread at this point. So we have Europe, we have um, South America, we have US, all of Canada. Then we have South Africa. We have Asia. We have Sweden, Finland, Germany. It's everywhere.
Mhm.
Australia, New Zealand. So books are faster because there are also different avenues like the digital ebooks, we have the audiobooks, we have the paperbacks and the hard copies. So it's a little bit wider spread than the flashcards. Flashcards, of course, it's all of Sri Lanka, all of Canada, and the US.
Mm.
We're hoping to expand further, but it's getting there.
And that's a lot already. And yeah, you talked about audiobooks and digital books, right? Yeah. Well, you mentioning it right now, I'm like, oh, that's true. There are audiobooks and digital books for kids. What does that look like? Is it that, for example, is it that, okay, digital books that parents can read to kids? Or like, what does that look like? I'm just hearing it more or less the first time.
Yes, so a lot of parents like buying the digital ebooks because it's one thing cheaper than the paperback, and they usually are used with they have their own iPads. Kids have their own iPads, and then a lot of the times parents would just sit with their child or in bed before they go to sleep and they just read like a chapter to them. So it has the pictures that the child can see. Of course, I personally like the paperback. I like the touch and feel of an actual book and the
Mhm.
page turning and the smell of the papers and stuff, old school. But but my children love. My daughter reads on her iPad. So does my son. They love reading. That gives them, and plus it also space problem that a lot of people have these days where they can't store a lot of books, so they like all these copies on a digital format where they can that is easily accessible.
Mm, that's amazing. That's amazing. I see how like it's really unique because I bet a lot of people will think of a book for children. We think of hard copies. You know, it's good to know that you see your business has gone that route of producing audiobooks, producing digital books, yeah. And another way to think about it, like why I think that's really genius, is because if you think of the children that are being given birth to right now, I think we'll call them Gen Alpha, like in terms of the generation, right? And these are children that as small as maybe from 3 years old, if sometimes earlier for some parents and sometimes older, quite right. But as early on, they already have iPads, right? But as a parent, a lot of the parents are millennials, so we may not be thinking of digital books for kids. We may still be thinking of hard copy. So it's important to understand that those kids are also born in a different generation, and
Yep.
sometimes audio books, digital books may even appeal to them much more compared to like hard copy
Correct.
books. But it's the parent that
Exactly.
buy the book for the kids. So it's difficult for a parent to just put themselves in the mind of the kid, right? You get, so it's really amazing that you thought of those ideas. What inspired it?
My kids. Everything is all based on my kids. I started Belly Bees because of my son. I started the educational brand because I wanted him to do things outside and do other creative things. Started the digital brand because of my kids, because there are times where I need a break as a parent from my business, from cooking, cleaning, writing, everything. So I mean, as a parent, you need your 5 minute downtime so you can just sit and drink your coffee too, right? So during that time, and especially my daughter, she loves to read, and she is a person who's also very creative, like I am, and even my son. Um, so I created stories digitally so that my son would be reading a lot more than he is right now. So this way he was getting stories firsthand, based on my childhood. So it becomes a very interesting, oh my God, what did mom do now? Stories. So that's how the whole digital thing came about.
Wow, that's cool. Hmm. Something you said hit me right there. Let me share with you what it is. You mentioned doing stories for your son from your own childhood, that it becomes even much more personally connected to them, the stories they are reading, and they are much more curious. And here they are learning about how you grew up, maybe even getting to understand you more bonding. Like, when you said it, what came to my mind is, what if there was a software that could maybe guide parents towards putting in their own stories, like maybe prompts, maybe give you a prompt, then you put the question, and then sorry, you put the answer to the question, put it, and then when it's finished, then it brings out the story, like it helps you bring it out as a story that your child can read further day, right? Like, that would be amazing, because this is you doing it for your son, but what if every parent can do that for their child if they
You're
wanted
leaving
to?
your legacy. Yeah, exactly, because you're leaving your legacy behind, right?
Wow.
I wanted to give you a small story. So this book I was telling you about, the Summer of Great Western, that's this one part, where I rolled my eyes at my mom because she forced me to wear a dress because I was a tomboy growing up. And my son suddenly hysterically laughing in his room. I'm like, what is happening? She's like, Mom, I can't believe you rolled your eyes at at grandma because she told you to wear a dress. And I'm like, okay, you're reading the book.
I see. Wow. Okay. So you mentioned that you're in a lot of all these countries where people buy books from. So is it, how are you getting into those countries? Is it partnership, collaboration, or people just order online from your website and then you ship to them? Was that?
Um, a little bit of both, Dr. Linda. So I do have my website where I ship out products to those respective customers. I also have partnered with Amazon, Walmart. Then I have my books available at Indigo chapters, and also Barnes and Nobles and a few other stores in the UK as well. So they do a lot of the distributions. They host my product because we have that partnership going. So when you have those different avenues of distribution, it becomes easier instead of just one.
Mm, I see your point. That's good. It's important to ask this question since some people who are writers as well looking to start their own business,
Of
looking
course.
to hear from what you are saying as a veteran in the field. You know, what challenges have you faced building a creative brand in a global marketplace, and how did you overcome them?
Well, some of the challenges, one of the big challenge I can tell you that happened when I was running the the infant side of things, the infant food side of things.
Mhm.
We were focusing on one distributor for a long time, and we made all these products thinking that we were going to get a PO at a certain date, and we didn't want to run short of the product. So we had a stock available. However, for unforeseen circumstances, that PO didn't come through. So we quickly had to navigate ourselves towards online space because the infant food was having expiry dates that
Mhm.
was coming through. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't leave anything just idling in a warehouse. We had to send it out to the market. So we opened up a online space. We had fairs, we had trade shows. We pushed all the products. In the meantime, that's actually when the idea for the educational brand started because we wanted to get our brand in front of the customer in a more wider range as opposed to just infant food. So that's how the creativity became a master player in our brand strategy, so that we so that our bottom line was not affected.
Mm, I see that. And just like, things like books, they are very valuable, yet they don't have expiry dates. So that can be helpful. It's even especially when shipping internationally and all of that, right?
Yes.
So that's a very good strategy as well, which is more like somebody it's like, so when you said something there, when you were depending on one distributor and then things happened, but if you notice the question I asked you before, you have mentioned you now currently using multiple distributors. So you see, it's like that challenge made you better, made you stronger, and then at this point you are relying on both your own outlet, online outlet, and then multiple distributors, so that even
Yes.
something happening with one distributor does not directly, affect your bottom line. That's
Exactly.
good. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. Um, is there any other challenge that you would like to share? Because I'm sure people would like to
Um,
learn.
Challenge as in I have a learning. For the longest time, I whatever the revenue I got, I put it back into the business. One of the so because of that, I didn't have like a safety net, a cushion
Mhm.
for the bad period because nobody knew COVID was going to happen, and then all of a sudden we have no safety net. So we have to think beyond our little box of comfort zone, and to go so that the business would survive. So in terms of challenges, I would think that to learn from it would be to have some kind of a safety net so you can um, let your company go in a direction where you want it to with confidence, and you
Mm,
don't have to wait and see everybody else doing it um, because you didn't have that backup plan.
mm. Wow. That's amazing because this sort of in a way even falls into some of the things that we do at Investonomy, which is teaching people how to have revenue diversification. Because even sometimes still putting other money in the business is like, if anything happens to you, if anything happens to the business, right, then it can still affect the money that is coming in, right? And just having that revenue diversification as something that we preach. And that also even came from my own experience where, running a brand, the brand has your face, and then you have health challenges, motherhood challenges, and then suddenly your bottom line is suffering huge, right? Something you
Yeah.
probably didn't anticipate. So I've seen that if while that was happening to me, what kept me afloat was the other things that were not directly the investments that were not in my business. Like we talk
Yeah.
about like stock investing, but I'm not necessarily saying that that's the only way somebody can achieve revenue diversification. I'm just saying that that is the what helped me in my own situation, and then we started teaching that to other people. So what I hear you saying there is to think of diversification, how whatever it means for that person, instead of
Yeah.
waiting for it when it has happened. Because these things, when business, especially when business is going so well, you almost never imagine that anything could happen to it.
You don't think that you keep thinking that you're invisible and everything's going to be fine, but it's not the
Mhm.
case.
It's not the case. And most times people don't realize it until it happens to them. But what we are even saying is, how can you learn from other people's experiences and put your house in order so that you don't even have to experience that? Because it's an awful thing to experience. It's an awful thing. And um, for me, the bad side of it is when people experience that, some people get to bounce back. Sometimes by coincidence, maybe they had something put away. They weren't thinking of revenue diversification, but maybe they just had something put away. Maybe they had somebody who could lend them money. Maybe they had enough credit history that they could, loan money and start again, right? But then many others don't survive it. Many businesses don't survive it, in the sense that that thing happens and the person is out of business, and maybe they find a job and they go from there. 10 years later, the story is more like, oh yeah, I once had a business until something happened, right? So it's not always the case that somebody will survive that a business will survive the lack of revenue diversification, the risk that comes when there's no revenue diversification.
I
That's
fully
it.
agree.
It's okay. All right. So let's look at what's your philosophy when it comes to early childhood education, and how does that inform your product design?
Fun. Everything's about having fun. Um, I find that when you're having fun, you remember it better. Especially in my son's case, when you are very theoretical and teaching him in theory, he won't get it. But you incorporate things like dinosaurs and games and things that he likes and make it fun, he remembers it better. That's the case even for me. I'm a very visual person when it comes to learning things. I can never read and just think. I have to write it down or make graphs or paragraphs or different arrows going from everywhere. Becomes more visual because your hands on your and you're having fun with the subject that you want to learn.
Mm,
So my key philosophy in anything I do is to make sure that it's fun experience for the child.
mm, mm. Good. So, do you see a gap in the market when it comes to meaningful educational products for kids? And if yes, how is Belly Beef filling that gap?
I do feel that there is a little bit of a gap. I find that since now the dawn of AI, people are getting a little too comfortable in getting AI to do things and not really thinking from your own skill set that you have.
Mm,
That has created a shift in education. I want my children to be educated, but I also want them to um, learn different skills on their own so that they are equipped with the proper skills so that they can lead our society one day. So if you are only gonna expect AI or only gonna expect digital formats to do things for you, you're not really thinking for yourself. You're not really pushing your boundaries as a person or as a human, um, and achieving those full potential that you could achieve. So that is why belly bees exist. So you can bridge that gap so that we equip these children, the next generation, with the proper um, education system, the proper skills, so they can lead us one day.
That's great. That's great. Okay, so let's see. How do you validate for the things that you create? How do you validate educational content to ensure it's actually resonating with young minds and their parents, or young minds specifically, right? And I'm asking this. I'm not a writer myself because, for example, validating them may not be necessary. So whatever it is that you are the expert.
We get a validation in terms of the comments we receive, the usage, the amount of downloads, the or the amount of products that we have sold, and and the reviews we get. We also validate through what exactly they want to see. Sometimes I wrote this book called Agent 174. It's an adult book, but the adults are asking for a part two. I'm like, there is no part two, but maybe I think about one. So things like that. A lot of the belly bees infant flavors, infant food flavors came about because of the customer feedback and say, hey, can you please make this product or this flavor flashcards. I never thought of making feelings and emotions flashcard to teach children feelings and emotions, and that it's okay to cry, it's okay to be hurt, it's okay to be happy. So the feelings matter. I never thought I'd make that, but here I am making feelings and emotions card because the customers want to teach those, but don't know how to.
I see. Oh, so what comes to my mind based on the response you just gave to me is how how does one position their business so that they can receive this feedback? Because, for example, sometimes you go online, you buy something, you're not necessarily dropping feedback a lot of time, and you are off. So, like, are there intentional things you're doing to ensure that you get access to the feedbacks that your customers are ready to give?
Well, the thing is, to be honest, Dr. Linda, I mean, if I take myself personally, I don't always give feedback to every single product I use either. I mean, to be honest, I don't have the time. And quite frankly, sometimes I forget as well. But one thing that has resonated with me was if somebody gives me, hey, get a 10% coupon for a review, things like that, that motivates you to leave those reviews. Because if you really like the product, quite frankly, they will come back again. And to have that 10% because you left a good review, or a bad one, whichever, because feedback is in any form is good for your business, because you learn from it. That will allow you to get those feedback for future products as well as get good reviews so you sell more products at the same time. So it also ties in with like a little bit of a marketing aspect, marketing and promotion. So you can, when they purchase, especially when it's online, when they purchase, you can send them a 10% coupon. Say if you can receive the 10% coupon if you place a review, or just be nice. Please place a review without in the more in the most polite way and help a small business grow. Or at a trade fair, you could just tell somebody who that you're speaking one-on-one to when they make the time to come to your stall and to buy something, that it'll benefit you as a company, a small business to grow because of that feedback. Sometimes all you need to do is just ask.
Yeah, instead of leaving it to chance, right? It's so simple, but it can easily be missed. That
Yep.
because some people may not remember. If we look at if we think of our own self as the consumer, we see that a lot of time you don't remember, nobody asked you for feedback, you're going, and even sometimes people feel like they feel like, oh, if I give you feedback, it may just look like complaining or criticizing, especially if it's not like a good feedback, right? So sometimes you see people who just be like, okay, you know what, I'm not going to say anything. But if you ask for feedback, it can just give the person the permission to tell you what they had in mind,
Yeah.
so that can help your business grow. Yeah,
Exactly.
because well, thinking about it from my own self, there sometimes you may see something and you're like, oh, I don't want it to look like I'm the one teaching them their job, because you're not so sure how the person is going to
Yeah.
receive feedback. But if somebody is asking for feedback, it's like you're saying, don't worry, just give it to me. I'm ready to take it. So giving the person the permission to give you feedback.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so how can I think you mentioned something about purposeful design? Um,
I'm so, say that
purposeful
again.
design. I think,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Uh, in the conversation before this show. So, how can entrepreneurs apply approach the approach of purposeful design in their own product creation?
So, for purpose of design is basically how you want to look at a product if you were buying it.
Mm,
What if it was on a shelf? Why would it attract you? Would it be the colors? Would it be the placement of the fonts? Would it be the benefits that you have highlighted? So you have to go. You can't think like an entrepreneur at that point. You have to think of like a consumer. So
mm,
if I was the mom, if I had a 5 year old, why would I buy this? What what value addition would I get?
mm,
If there is no value addition in by just looking at it, then obviously that's your cue to change your packaging. If there is like, hey, you know what, I will buy this because of these reasons. And of course you can always test it with a few of your customers or friends as well. We launched a cereal some time back, infant cereal, and we gave a few products to some of our customers free of charge, and just say, hey, just open. What do you think of this package? Just rip it off. I mean, we already knew the product was perfect, but we had no idea about of the packaging. Um, and then there were people saying the pink is too dark because your fonts can't be seen. Um, Things like that. We got those customers, our favorite customers or our frequent flyer customers, to evaluate for us. I mean, they love doing these kind of things because they get free product anyway, and they gave us valuable feedback at the same time.
mm. Okay. For the sake of those listening, if you have any question you would like me to ask her, kindly drop your question as a comment or whatever platform you're watching from, and I'll pick those questions and ask her, especially if you're watching us live. All right. Okay. So while we wait and see if there are questions that will drop, I have some questions that I would like you to give us more insight on. What advice will you give to a creative person, say writer, educator, artist who want to build a business around their passion but don't know where to start? What advice do you have for them?
Just start somewhere. No idea is a bad idea. Just start somewhere, even if it's just a one line of a book, or the first chapter or the first paragraph. Just write it. You don't need to show it to anybody. You could just start. Once you start, that's all you need is a start, because it'll start coming to you. And even if it's just a person who likes to draw, just draw. And over time it'll develop into something that you will be very proud of.
Hmm. Okay. So what one business lesson that you learned the hard way do you wish that you had known earlier?
Safety net. Always always have a safety net. I learned that the hard way, and I have promised myself never again will I go through that. So always have different distribution channels, always have different product variations and product differentiators, from books to flashcards to even things like bookmarks, greeting cards, post-it notes. Have a variety of products where you don't have to only rely on one thing. That'll give your brand a higher equity in terms of value, and it'll give you the opportunity to be in front of a wider range of customers.
That's good. Okay. Uh, for entrepreneurs building products for children, what are the most important things to keep in mind?
Consistency is one in terms of marketing. And apart from product, quality is a big must. Certification, especially if you're living in Canada or anywhere else, because it's for infants and children. And then make sure that there's value addition in terms of the products you create.
I get it. In terms of certification, like especially since we're talking about products for children, for example, are there compulsory certifications that one has to have, whether it's in Canada or in US or any other country as well?
There are certain products. I mean, different provinces will have different certification regardless of what item you want to sell. For example, our flashcards require certification from Health Canada because we have a physical product that the children has to touch, especially because we have things like high contrast cards. Babies tend to, touch them and, have drool all over them and things like that. So we want to make sure that whatever you do, it's tested from a testing facility that uh, that the country is recommending, and all that can be found. Information can be found on their respective website. For Ontario, there's like Service Canada that you can find information on. So those are good places that you can start. There are other for infant food. I know in Sri Lanka we had a lot of certifications that we had to get because it's a consumable product. And then not so much for books because books don't have a lot of problems in terms of getting certifications because they're just books. But that depends. Like if you have things like toys, will have different certifications. If you have puzzles or any other consumable products or anything, let's say for clothing or diapers or wipes, anything that touches the skin will have different certifications. So those can be found online.
Okay. All right. So, how do you personally stay creative and inspired while managing the business side of things?
Well, I do something creative every day. It could be drawing or writing or cooking something that I have never done before. It just gives you an outlet to express your creativity. So I do something creative every day, and I try to be consistent in what I do as well. Um, like I said before, when you start, it just flows.
I get you.
And of
Just
course, that
go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead.
In terms of balancing everything, it's a lot about managing your time and, of course, having your calendar organized will help, but giving it reason to be flexible also at the same time, because when it comes to children, there's always something random that comes up and you have to change your plans. But yeah.
That's good. I I have a question for you. For a parent that is watching this, is there do you know of maybe any app that perhaps have lots of digital books for children and parents can subscribe to? Or yeah.
We try not to do too much in terms of digitally where people can subscribe to, but I do know Amazon hosts a wide range of books. I did come across another site. I'm sorry, but it just slipped my mind. But your
Mhm.
local library should have other digital side of the books as well, where you can download and check out and read at the same time.
I get your point. Yeah. What I was getting to is to see maybe if your book can also be found on those maybe subscription places, so that maybe parents can check them out.
Yes, so it is in most of the websites. For the life of me, I can't remember from the top of my head now,
Mhm.
but it is in most of the sites. It's available in all the libraries as well. Um, so it can be searched online and purchased or viewed on read online as well.
I see. For the audiobook, where do people get it from? Is it your website?
From my website, but it's also widely available at Spotify on Spotify. Rather.
Oh, I see, I see, I see. Good, good. All right. What's next for you at Babies? Like, yeah. What's the vision?
Um, Vision is to be more global. I want to expand the flashcard range and more into creative side of children's hands-on experience, so they can learn problem-solving skills, hand-eye coordination, things that affects those avenues is where we are looking at right now.
Nice, nice. Okay. Uh, what is the one question that you wish that I asked you, but I have not asked you yet?
I don't, I'm not sure.
Okay, that's fine. All right. That means I've asked you a lot of questions, I guess.
Ask me all the questions.
Thank you very much for coming on the show and sharing with us both what you do and the lessons you've learned, and how people can monetize, how they can get started if they're into writing and other creative work as well. Thank you very much for the insight, and we wish Belly Bees more global exposure.
Thank you
Yeah,
very much, and thank you for
no
having
problem.
me.
Is all right. So we'll end this show now. For viewers, see you in the next episode. Okay, bye bye.